What's good, family? Welcome back to Mike Lance, the place where hip hop, sports, and culture collide. Today we are diving into Jay-Z, not just the rapper, not just the billionaire, but the mogul behind the Roc Nation, the company that quietly rewired music, sports, and politics. Sure, headlines recently clowned Jay for losing his $5.4 billion Times Square casino bid, but while the internet debated the bigger truth was overlooked. Roc Nation already runs the game. Jay-Z doesn't need to drop music to dominate. His empire is shaping what we watch, who we celebrate, and how we think. This is the story of how Roc Nation went from a management company to a culture empire, and why its influence just keeps expanding. To understand Roc Nation, first of all, you gotta start with the man himself, Sean Carter. Jay-Z was born in Brooklyn Marcy Projects. He came up with the crack era, a hustler before he was a rapper. That mentality defined everything. When no label wanted him in the early 90s, he and M Dash and also Biggs created Rockefeller Records. Out of that came Reasonable Doubt, The Blueprint, Kanye West, and an entire movement that reshaped hip-hop. But Jay was never content being just the best rapper alive. He thought about ownership, about legacy, about empire. So in 2008, he launched Roc Nation. The idea wasn't just a label, it was a company that could reach into every corner of entertainment. Music, sports, politics, culture, a quiet takeover, just to put it that way. In music, Roc Nation didn't just sign stars, they built icons. Rihanna, J. Cole, Alicia Keys, Shakira, Megan Thee Stallion, DJ Khaled, Meek Mill. But there is the key. These aren't just chart toppers, they are culture forces. Rihanna didn't just sing, she built Fenty and became a billionaire. J. Cole didn't just rap, he created Dreamville, one of hip-hop's most respected platforms. Meek Mill transformed from Philly street rapper to an advocate for prison reform. Behind the curtain, Roc Nation guiding branding, media partnerships, tours. In few words, they weren't just selling records, they were shaping narratives and minting legends. In 2013, Jay expanded again. Roc Nation Sports. At first, it sounded wild. A rapper as sports agent? Hell nah. But Jay saw what others didn't. Athletes weren't just athletes anymore. They were culture figures. Kevin Durant, Saquon Barkley, Des Bryant, Skylar Diggins. They signed with Roc Nation. Not because Jay could negotiate contracts, but because Roc Nation understood branding, storytelling, and visibility. Suddenly, the same company booking Super Bowl halftime shows was negotiating NBA and NFL deals. It blurred the lines between sports and entertainment. That's not business as usual, that's culture dominance. But the influence didn't stop at the entertainment. Jay-Z and Roc Nation stepped into politics and social justice. They confounded the Reform Alliance with Meek Mill and Michael Rubin, fighting to change America's criminal justice system. And then came on Jay-Z's boldest moves, the NFL deal. Roc Nation took control of all-time shows and cultural initiatives. The move was controversial. Critics said it betrayed Colin Kaepernick, while others saw it as a power play. But whether you loved it or hated it, one thing was clear, Roc Nation wasn't just reacting to culture anymore. They were in boardroom, shaping it. The best example, look at the next Super Bowl. Jay-Z and Roc Nation handpicked Bad Bunny as the halftime headliner, and the story behind it says everything. Bad Bunny revealed that when Jay personally called him with the news, he was so hyped he dropped into 100 pull-ups on the spot. He said, I was keeping this secret for so long. I'm excited for my friends, my family, Puerto Rico, for Latino people everywhere. This isn't just for me, it's for my culture. Jay in his statement doubled down. What Benito has done and continues to do for Puerto Rico is truly inspiring. We are happy to have him on the world's biggest stage. This wasn't just a booking, it was a statement. Roc Nation was using the world's most watched show to elevate Latino culture to the center of the global stage. Just like Kendrick Lamar and Dr. Dre before, Jay wasn't curating performers, he was curating history. Here is the part most of the people been missing. Roc Nation doesn't just place artists, they control the narrative around them. When Rihanna announces something, global news. When J. Cole drops, the culture freezes. When Bad Bunny is announced for the Super Bowl, the headlines dominate for weeks. That's no coincidence, that's Roc Nation infrastructure. A media web that decides what's hot, what's ignored, or who gets the spotlight. They don't just ride the wave, they make the wave. Of course, not every play lands. Take the Times Square Casino project. Jay-Z partnered with Caesars Entertainment and SL Green for a $5.4 billion bid, and it had star power, political backing, and Roc Nation branding and its community project. But Broadway leaders and residents fought back, citing traffic, crime, and cultural damage. The Community Advisory Committee voted it down, a rare L for Jay-Z. But think about what that even means. A kid from Mercy Projects was bidding to control Times Square real estate. But here is where the cracks really start to show. In 2025, filings accused Roc Nation attorney Joseph Tacopina and TMZ of orchestrating something just bigger than legal defense, a baseless coordinated media campaign. The allegation that Roc Nation wasn't just fighting battles in courtroom, they were fighting them in the headlines. Think about it, every time Roc Nation or its affiliates caught bad press, RICO mentions, lawsuits, messy scandals, boom, within hours, TMZ will drop counter stories, loud denials, positive spin, headlines bold enough to drown out the noise. According to filings, this wasn't coincidence, it looked like a cooperation. Lawyers opposing Roc Nation pointed out the timing, the placement, the way the TMZ megaphone seemed to echo exactly what Roc Nation wanted the public to hear, faster than most news cycles even work. The feelings call it media manipulation. Others say it's a strategy, using public opinion as a form of defense. Of course, Roc Nation and Tacopina flatly deny it. Their side says Roc Nation is news. TMZ reports on it because the world cares, not because of secret deals. They argue these lawsuits are opportunistic, painting Jay-Z's empire like some mafia syndicate in the press. But whether or not it sticks in court, the cultural damage is already done. Because here's the thing, if the public starts believing every denial is planted, every headline is bought, then even the truth starts to sound suspicious. And in an industry built on loyalty, authenticity, and image, perception is everything. The Tacopina TMZ allegation don't just question Roc Nation's power, they question their credibility. And this is where whispers of Roc Nation being dangerous or even tied to snitch allegations gain traction. Because when people believe a company can blackball critics, twist narratives, and maybe even cozy up to authorities, it stops looking like branding and starts looking like politics. TMZ may think it's just reporting the news, but in this story, it's painted as the chorus in the Roc Nation's courtroom symphony, loud enough to make the public hum along, whether they know the lyrics or not. From shadows to spotlight, from controversy to power, every empire has a fixer. For Roc Nation, that fixer is Desiree Perez, the woman who rose from COO to CEO. Hailed as one of the most sharpest negotiators in music, Perez turned Jay-Z's vision into a global empire. But her journey isn't just a story of survival. It's also a story of contradictions, loyalty and betrayal, redemption and suspicion. Quick rewind in the 1990s, Perez was arrested in a federal drug trafficking case. Court filings confirm she cooperated with prosecutors, a fact that decades later still fuels the whispers that Roc Nation's empire rests on the shoulders of a so-called snitch. Then came January 2021. Perez received a full presidential pardon from Donald J. Trump. The White House said she had taken accountability, turned her life around, and become an advocate for criminal justice reform. But here is where the irony cuts deep. Roc Nation has always branded itself as progressive, aligning with democratic causes, backing Black Lives Matter, working alongside the Biden-Harris administration on reform. Yet, its CEO lifeline came not from Democrats, but from Trump, a president the industry and its fan base often position as the enemy. Nicki Minaj herself called out the contradiction. She said, "So let me get this straight. Y'all so-called black savior, Jay-Z has a Hispanic CEO who was pardoned by Trump. Interesting." On Reddit, fans echoed the sentiment. She was pardoned by Trump for charges from the 90s. Weird. Cause that side supposedly don't rock with Trump. Another added, "Getting a pardon don't make you solid. They only stopped messing with him cause their handlers told them to." Which is something that shows really who is in control and who isn't. The takeaway, public Democratic loyalty, private Republican favors. Is that survival in the empire game or hypocrisy hiding in plain sight? Fast forward to 2025, one Perez private life bursts into public courts. Her daughter, Demori Hadley, filed a civil suit alleging Perez weaponized Florida's Baker Act and Marchman Act laws designed for emergencies to have her involuntarily committed. NBC6 Florida reviewed prosecutors' memos and court records, which raised questions about how that detention was handled. The filings paint a grim picture. Family power struggles playing out through state institutions. Motions, gag orders, accusations of leaks, it all piled up, and with every headline, Roc Nation's polished image cracked a little more. And then came Nicki Minaj again, this time accusing Perez of orchestrating swatting incidents, fake police calls sent to rivals' homes, and of using paid medical professionals and fake reps to silence critics. These weren't backroom whispers anymore. Nicki's accusations tied directly into Demori's lawsuit, and with millions of fans amplifying her post, Perez's name turned from industry insider to trending headline. The CEO of Roc Nation wasn't just a deal maker anymore. She was a character in hip-hop's biggest soap opera. Scroll through Reddit threads, hip-hop blogs, or X timelines, and the split is clear. Some hail Perez as ultimate negotiator, a woman who reinvented herself from convict to CEO, from outcast to queenpin. Others brand her as compromised, a fixer whose past still bleeds into her present. Perception is everything, and right now, Roc Nation's perception isn't just the house that Hov built. It's a house with visible cracks. So let's separate fact from allegations. The first fact, Perez was convicted in the 90s. Fact. She was pardoned by Trump in 2021. Fact. Her daughter's civil case is active. Fact. Nicki Minaj, Tony Busby, and others have made explosive accusations. Fact. But the rest, swatting, shadow operatives, media collusion, those remain allegations filed in civil suits and amplified online. Not convictions, not verdicts. And yet, here's the truth about power. It doesn't take conviction to lose trust. The bigger the empire, the louder the whispers, and Roc Nation today is not just fighting lawsuits, it's fighting a narrative that its empire is built on contradictions. It's public loyalty one way, private favors another, reform speeches on stage, courtroom scandals in the shadows. In the end, Desiree Perez embodies Roc Nation paradox. She is both survival and scandal, redemption and contradiction. Piece by piece, Roc Nation has positioned itself everywhere. Music, sports, politics, media, global events. And here's the thing, even when one project fails, the empire keeps expanding. But let's not skip over one of those failures, Jay-Z's Times Square casino. Jay-Z's pitch was bold, a $5.4 billion mega casino in the middle of the world's most famous crossroads. He framed it as community project, a boost for local jobs, a chance to redefine New York nightlife under the Roc Nation banner. On paper, it sounded like progress, but the community wasn't buying it. Residents, theater owners, and activists pushed back hard. They argued casinos don't create stability and they create dependency, which is fact indeed. Let's keep it real. Casinos aren't factories, they aren't tech hubs, they don't build lasting careers. Rather, they generate revolving door service jobs tied to gambling habits. Instead of safety, they bring higher crime, addiction, and instability. In a place like Times Square, already overcrowded, already chaotic, locals saw this as gasoline on the fire and not as an opportunity as Jay-Z was selling it to them. And just like that, the project was rejected. Now here's the contrast that stings. While Jay was taking that L in Manhattan, Nas, his longtime rival turned peer, was celebrating a casino approval in Queens, his home turf. For Nas, the narrative was different. His involvement was marked as neighborhood pride, bringing investment back to a borough long overshadowed by Manhattan. The optics, Nas as the hometown visionary, Jay as the mogul whose ambition overshot the community trust. It's almost poetic. Two legends from the same city using casinos as new frontier. But one gets green light as a symbol of community uplift, and the other gets shut down as corporate overreach. That contrast says as much as about perception as it does about policy. And that's the bigger takeaway. Jay-Z's empire is vast, but its size means every move is scrutinized louder. When Roc Nation succeeds, it looks like dominance. When it fails, it looks like manipulation. The casino fight wasn't just about Times Square. It was about whether Jay-Z's promises of community benefit align with the reality of what projects like casinos actually bring. Because if casinos don't create true wealth, if they create insecurity instead of stability, then the failure in Times Square wasn't just a business loss, it was a credibility loss. And in the silent takeover Jay-Z has been building, credibility is one currency you can't afford to gamble away. Every empire has its crown and its shadows, and in the shadows of Roc Nation lies one of the most persistent rumor in the industry, the blacklist. Whispers that if you cross Jay-Z's cycle, your calls stop being returned, your bookings dry up, and your name fades from the charts, not by accident but by design, is real. The term blackballed isn't new in hip-hop. Artists from every era have claimed that unseen hands control the gates. But when Roc Nation's name comes up, the stories get louder. Critics allege that Roc Nation doesn't manage talent. It manages opportunity, deciding who gets access and who gets exiled. And no case brings this to surface like Tory Lanez. After the shooting incident with Megan Thee Stallion, herself a Roc Nation artist, Tory wasn't just facing legal consequences, he was facing a tidal wave of industry silence. Radio play slowed, awards ignored him, collaborations vanished. To some, it looked like justice, but to others, it looked like the unmistakable fingerprints of a blacklist. Tory's own father didn't mince words. Outside the courtroom after sentencing, he pointed directly at Roc Nation and Jay-Z, accusing them of running a machine that crushed his son's career before the trial had even finished. He shouted about manipulation, industry bias, doors that had once been wide open, suddenly slamming shut, and while many dismissed it as the anger of a grieving father, others asked if he was entirely wrong. Because the pattern of artists claiming they have been blackballed after tangling with Roc Nation is too long to ignore.
You want to know exactly how I'm feeling? Yes, sir. I just stood here in this Los Angeles County and witnessed the worst miscarriage of justice that this world has ever seen. You want to know how I feel? I'll tell you exactly how I feel. I got some names that I want to call. Alex Spiro, Desiree Perez, and the whole wicked system of Roc Nation, including you, Jay-Z.
Yes.
You who say you rose from the gutter, but you have traded and bartered the souls of young men, and you're still doing it.
From rumors of journalists being pressured to change coverage, to whispers of artists frozen out of events, the accusations paint Roc Nation not just as a company, but as a gatekeeper, with the blacklist always in its back pocket. Look man, look deeper and you find smaller stories that support the narrative. Independent artists who said features fell through because rock affiliated artists were told not to work with them. Executives hinting that certain managers don't get invites anymore. Even critics online claim Roc Nation has mastered the art of silent exile. They say that if you are not publicly cancelled, then you are just gone. For Tory, this theory dovetails with the harsh reality of his sentencing. His supporters argue it wasn't a legal battle, it was a political one, fought in the court of industry influence where Roc Nation's hand weighed heavily on the scale. Whether true or not, the optics made it easy to believe. Meghan had Roc Nation's backing, Tory had none. The verdict became more than a trial outcome. It became proof in the eyes of conspiracy believers of a blacklist in action. And yet, here's the irony. For all the talk of Roc Nation blackballing others, Jay-Z himself once rapped about being shut out, about fighting systems that didn't want him in. Now, decades later, the man who broke through closed doors is accused of becoming the one holding the keys. That's the paradox of power. You either dismantle the system or you inherit it. In the end, whether real or imagined, the blacklist allegations add another layer to Roc Nation's mystique. A company that built itself as home for artists is now rumored to exile them just as easily. And if perception is reality in the music game, then the very idea that Roc Nation could blacklist you is almost as powerful as doing it for real. Losing that deal doesn't erase Roc Nation's empire, it just shows how far Jay-Z has expanded his reach. Piece by piece, Roc Nation has positioned itself everywhere. Music, sports, politics, media, even the Super Bowl stage. Jay-Z doesn't need to release music every Friday to dominate. He already controls the ecosystem. From Grammys to NBA finals, from halftime shows to political reform, from Puerto Rico to Times Square boardrooms. This isn't just success, this is takeover. A serious one, for that matter. So, what do you all think? Is Roc Nation the most powerful entertainment company in the world right now? Or is Jay-Z reaching too far? One thing's for sure, whether it's music, sports, or politics, Jay-Z has built an empire that already controls the culture. And no casino vote is changing that. Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and share and subscribe to Mike Lance, where we keep our lens on the moves shaping hip-hop, sports and culture.